themselves.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Blake. I'm a councillor in Seven Sisters Ward. I'm a member of this panel.
And Councillor Luke Corley-Harrison, Crouch End Ward.
Thank you. And the officers, please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dale Barrett, Licensing Team Leader.
I'm Michael Squire from Haringey Trading Standards.
I'm Michelle Williams, the legal advisor, and my colleague is here, Sadika Rahman. Sadika, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Sadika Rahman. I'm a lawyer in the litigation team with Michelle.
Yeah, he's shadowing tonight.
Okay, welcome. Thank you.
I am Nazir Chowdhury. I'm the Democratic Services Officer and the clerk to this meeting.
Excellent, thank you. And we have with us the applicant and sorry, I can't see anybody else.
Sorry, it's me. I'm Nisha Bashar, the licensing officer.
Oh,
sorry,
hi.
my camera's not working again.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you were here. Okay, thank you.
Good. I'm Marlene Diagla from Public Health.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maria Ahmed, Public Health Officer. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Felicia Chemist, I'm a Commercial Environmental Health and Trading Standards Manager.
Oh, okay. Hello. And if everyone, and then we have with us the applicants and Michael Rogers. Are you the representative of the applicant?
Sorry, Chair. No, he's not the representative of the applicant. Mr. Rogers is here representing the licence holder. This is a review against the premises licence, so he's here representing Mr. Yerga.
That's exactly what I meant to say. My apologies, I made a mistake. Okay, okay, then we should start. Okay.
Sorry, Chair. Do you want Mr. Rogers and Mr. Yerga to just introduce themselves?
Well, I should have done it for Mr. Rogers. Yes, yes.
Yes, madam, you have already introduced me. Michael Rogers, I'm representing Mr. Yerga, the designated premises supervisor.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Burçin Yurga. I'm the designated supervisor of Tiger Food and Wine Transfer Lordship Lane.
Okay, thank you. Have I missed anybody? I hope not. Okay, thank you very much and welcome to everyone. Just to remind people that this film, this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. And any apologies? I don't think we have.
None, Chair.
None, Chair.
Urgent business, again, I don't think we have. And declaration of interest. No. Okay. Then the summary of the procedure. The procedure for the meeting has been emailed to all participants by the clerk. For the purpose of any members of the public watching, we will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, the objector will present their case and the committee and applicants will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the applicant, well, we call them applicant, but we know this is a review case, will present their application and the committee and objectors will have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then have the opportunity to sum up and then the meeting will conclude to allow the committee to deliberate and reach a decision. This decision will then be provided within 5 working days of this meeting. Okay. And now, if I ask the licensing officer, when you're ready, Mrs. Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, before I start, can I just check that the panel has got the additional documents beforehand? So the first one, I believe, was the updated public health representation. That was then followed by some documents submitted by Mr. Rogers on behalf of his client. And the third document was the licensing authority representation, which I'd omitted from the initial report pack. Just to ensure everybody's had sight of those. Please.
We have everything. Does everybody else have all the paperwork?
Yes,
okay.
It's nodding. Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the panel has before them this evening an application for the review of a premises licence at Tiger Food and Wine, 20 Lordship Lane, N17. It's based in the Northumberland Park ward. The application has been submitted by the Trading Standards Responsible Authority and relates mainly to the objective of prevention of crime and disorder, but also has concerns with the protection of children from harm. The premises was discovered to be stocking non-duty paid cigarette and hand-rolling tobacco on the 30th of April 2021, following a visit by officers of Trading Standards Service. The Trading Standards Officer also wished to highlight concerns with regards to the duty status of beer stocks found on the premises and the fact that the shop's CCTV was not recording images at the time of the visit, which is a breach of the current licence conditions. There was a further incident at the premises on the 1st of September 2021, where an underage test purchase was made. So basically the shop failed to carry out their due diligence. On this occasion, a can of Gordon's gin was sold to a 16-year-old female on site. The premises license is held by Mr. Bersin Yerga, and he's also the designated premises supervisor, therefore the person that's responsible for overseeing the sale of alcohol on site. The premises license allows just for the supply of alcohol, and you have there at 1.2 the timings for this. That's 5:30 in the morning through to 1 a.m. across the week. Representations has been received in support of the application, namely by Public Health and the licensing authority supporting the review. In terms of the options available to the licensing subcommittee, once the subcommittee has heard from all parties, it may decide to modify the conditions of the license. It may also decide to exclude a license of activity from the scope of the license, or to remove the designated premises supervisor, or to suspend the license for 3 months, or indeed to revoke the license. Whichever decision is made, we ask that clear and cogent reasons are given in the deliberations and the resolution that is finalised and sent out to the licence holder. In terms of background, the existing premises licence was transferred to Mr. Yerga in October 2011. There is a copy of the licence in the bundle pack at Appendix 3. As I've said, the review application relates to the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objectives and is made on the grounds that smuggled goods have been found at the premises. That's the non-duty paid cigarettes and, of course, the breaches of the conditions that have been witnessed. In terms of the licensing policy matters, this is on at section 3. In reviewing the licensing subcommittee will consider and take into account the complaint history of the premises and all other relevant information. A number of reviews may arise in connection with crime that is not directly connected with licensable activities. For example, the sale of contraband goods. The subcommittee does not have the powers to judge the criminality or otherwise of any issues. The subcommittee's role is to ensure the promotion of the crime prevention objective. There is certain criminal activity that may arise in connection with licensed premises which should be treated as particularly serious. These include the use of the premises for the sale and storage of smuggled tobacco and alcohol. Where reviews arise in respect of these criminal activities and the subcommittee determines that the crime prevention objective is being undermined, it is expected that revocation of the licence, even in the first instance, should be seriously considered, and that is in the section 182 guidance, and I've written a section there in the report for the committee. The licensing authority in determining what action to take will seek to establish the cause of concern, and any action taken will be directed at these causes. Any action taken to promote the licensing objectives will be appropriate and proportionate. And therefore, the committee, just to remind ourselves that Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998 is also in play here, as we have a duty to ensure that we're doing all we can to limit crime in the area. the Human Rights Act comes into play here also. Chair, that's a quick overview there for the panel, and I can now hand over to the Trading Standards Responsible Authority, who will take you through their case. Unless you have any questions for me, if anyone has any questions for me.
I personally don't have any. I think your report is very clear. Thank you. Can I ask the members if they have any questions? Okay, I think Councillor Harrison is indicated.
Thank you. Just one question, Ms. Barrett. If you could, I wasn't sure whether there was a delivery note in the pack related to the Polish beer that were invoiced a day later. Was there a delivery note that included the date of the delivery?
Okay, that I cannot answer. Maybe the Trading Standards Officer may be able to shed some light on that when he's taken through.
Okay, we can save it for later. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Any more questions? No?
No questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask if there are any questions from the licensing holder? No.
No, thank you.
Okay. And then I will ask if there are any questions from the licensing officer or the public health at this point. This is questions on the report, yeah?
Not for me.
Okay. In that case, Trading Standards, when you're ready, please.
Yes, good evening, Chair. I won't repeat what Ms Barrett has already said, but just to give you a little bit more detail on the visits that were carried out. On the 30th of April 2021, Trading Standards carried out an inspection visit of Tiger Food and Wine. On that occasion, the premises licence holder and the DPS were not present at the premises. During the inspection, officers discovered 180 non-duty paid cigarettes and 500 grams of hand rolling tobacco, which were behind the counter. These were in a box, which also contained cash. Further inspection was carried out of the stockroom at the rear of the shop, where a further 1,600 cigarettes were found. Whilst on the premises, the officers noticed relatively large stocks of Polish beers in the stockroom, and subsequent inquiries were made with regard to invoicing for those beers. In the pack, there are code B notices and the receipt that related to the visit. The foreign tobacco that was found was not in the UK standardised packaging, and also bore incorrect foreign language health warnings, which are not legal to sell in the UK. It can be a criminal offence under Regulation 15 of the Standardised Packaging of Tobacco Products Regulations to offer tobacco products which are not in standardised packaging. And it can also be a criminal offence under the Tobacco and Related Products Regulations 2016 to sell tobacco products with no health warnings or non-English language health warnings. It can also be an offence under the Licensing Act to stock non-duty paid goods on the licensed premises. So a letter was sent to Mr. Burchin Jurga, the DPS and premises licence holder, and his responses are in the pack. He said that the tobacco was for personal use, and he did provide an invoice relating to the tobacco and cigarettes. In response to the question that was raised regarding delivery notes, we were provided with invoices, but we were not provided with any delivery notes. So I don't know if there are any others, but not from our side. We don't have any delivery notes in the pack. A letter was also sent to Mr. Burhan Jurga, the director of Kaplan Food and Wine Limited, who actually own the business, and his responses are in the pack as well. In his response, in relation to the beer, he said that the shop had not stocked those beers before, and they're all delivered on the morning of the Trading Standards visit by the relevant cash and carries. And obviously that makes the relevance of the date of the invoices that were provided, in that they were actually dated the day after the visit. So Trading Standards do not accept the explanation that tobacco is for personal use, mainly because it was in two locations on the premises, behind the counter and in the rear of the shop. And also it did not seem to be the sort of tobacco that a single smoker would use, in that some of it was hand rolling tobacco, there was some of it was cigarettes, there were different brands, and generally a smoker would tend to try and stick to the same brand, in my experience, or the same sort of tobacco. Trading standards has mentioned also that there was no CCTV footage on the premises, which was requested. The CCTV was not working, which is a license condition. Trading standards are concerned about the explanation in relation to the beer. It does seem very unlikely that all the beer would have been delivered on that morning of the visit, and that the invoices would all be dated the day after. In a nutshell, that is the basic case that trading standards have put forward. I don't know if anyone has any questions in relation to that.
Thank you. I will ask some members first if they have any. Any questions from members? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, what wasn't totally clear to me from the report, I think, was what the issue with the Polish beers was. Was it that they didn't have the correct English descriptions, that they are not permitted for sale in the UK? The report just states that Polish beers were for sale, but of course we have beers from all countries. So if you could just elaborate on that.
Yeah, the Polish beers are legal to sell in the UK. The only requirement is that the UK duty needs to be paid on them. It's quite common when large amounts of Polish beers are found in shops. It's often the case that invoices aren't available. If invoices aren't available, there is a possibility that the beer has not been purchased from a legitimate source. All beer should be purchased from an authorised wholesaler, and invoices should be available for that beer. Just one thing I'd also like to add, I forgot to mention in my initial comments, that in relation to the underage sale, which took place on the September 21st, which Ms Barrett mentioned, on that occasion an underage test purchase was made by trading standards, and Gordon's gin was sold to an underage person. I forgot to mention that earlier on.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, could I just get clarification around the underage, the sale of this can? I saw that there's a refusal sheet, there's sheets in there. Could you just explain to me, so every time a shop a shop owner, keeper refuses to sell something, they have to make a note of it, do they? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that is the purpose of a refusals register. The purpose of the refusals register is so a shop can demonstrate due diligence. For example, if over a period of months a number of refusals are made, if each one is logged, if there is a chance when a sale is made, then the shop can show that on, say, 5 or 10 occasions they've refused, which would go in their favour, so to speak, in return in the case of their due diligence. It's not a legal requirement, but it is something we ask them to do in relation to the responsible trader scheme, and it is a matter for their due diligence, so it's something we encourage.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Can I ask about the camera, Michael? Was any indication how long the camera was working or recording?
I have no information on that. I purely requested the footage for the CCTV, as I thought it might shed some light on whether or not the illicit tobacco, illegal tobacco, was being sold, as it may have been visible on the camera being passed over the counter or not, so to speak. But obviously without the footage we couldn't see either way. But I just requested the footage and was told that it wasn't available. I think you might have to ask
Yes.
Mr. Yerger about that one.
Yes, I was just wondering if there was any footage at all, that's all, but I will ask, yeah. Thank you. Can I ask any more questions from the licensing holder? Oh, do you have any questions from the licensing holder?
Yes, just a couple of points. In relation to the Polish beers, were you able to go through the invoices that Mr. Yerger provided and to check if the beers that were in the stock room matched those that were recorded on the invoices?
I didn't take an exact count on the day of how much beer was there, so my request was purely for proof that he had purchased the beer from a legitimate source, and my concern was that the invoices didn't appear to relate to a prior purchase. To my mind, they appeared to relate to one that was made afterwards, and that was my concern. I didn't do a detailed audit of the beer, or indeed go through the invoices in great detail.
Thank you. And just so it's clear, I think it's in your report, but on the 30th of April, the employee who was present was Mr. Yilmaz. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And on the 1st of September, the underage test purchase, the person who was present was Mr. Burhan Yerga, Mr. Yerga's father.
Yes, I wasn't there myself, but I believe that is the case, yes.
Just to clarify from your report, yes. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions from the licensing officer or public health at this point?
Nothing from me, Chair, no.
Okay. If that's in that case, I think we'll move on to public health. Maria, you want to say something about your report?
Yeah, my report can be found in the additional document. So I'll just keep it brief. So as a representative of the Director of Public Health, we made a representation in support of the review regarding the premise license under the license objective protecting children from harm. So the premises is located within a residential area, which is surrounded by college, secondary schools and 8 primary schools within the 10-minute walk of the premises. This is an area where there are many children and young people who live and study. And a failed underage test purchase was made from a licensed premises under the control of the premise license holder, Burchin Yerga, on the 1st of September. So the sales of alcohol to children under the age of 18 has serious wider public health consequences, such as antisocial behaviour and health issues. And young people who drink in unsupervised situations are in danger of becoming dependent on alcohol at a very young age. So in Haringey, 4.2% of 15-year-olds are regular drinkers. Also, we are still seeing younger patients displaying the effects of excessive alcohol consumption. However, there is no significant trend because we are making conservative efforts to both prevent and tackle alcohol consumption in children and young people. And we've listed some of the projects that we are working on. So this also includes Insight Platform, which is an organisation that is 7 minutes walk away from the premises that supports young people, children and families that are impacted by alcohol use in Haringey and provide one-to-one health and wellbeing support for children at risk of trying or using alcohol. And there are other projects like the Yankod project, which I'm not going to go too much into detail. And the failure to promote licensing objectives undermines our efforts and goes against to support our holistic whole system approach to protecting children from alcohol harms. The business is conscious around the licensing laws and knows that underage sales will lead to a penalty. Despite knowing the consequences, an underage test purchase was made on 1st September. We have read the new document submitted by the applicant, and the applicant's father had sold a beer to a 16-year-old thinking it was similar to Red Bull. And although they have provided evidence of the refusal log, they did not demonstrate the same due diligence in their underage test purchase. This suggests that the designated premise license holder is not responsible, did not take all the reasonable steps and precautions to avoid committing the offence, and the licensing laws should not be taken lightly. And underage sales constitutes a legal activity in direct contradiction to commitment to protecting children. We therefore recommend the committee considers revoking the licence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I will take questions from members if there are any. No. Okay. Are there questions from the licensing holder? Any questions?
Just something concerning the conditions that you propose in the alternative. They relate to the putting in place a Challenge 25 policy, which isn't in place at the moment, and also a refusals log. Are you content with the proposed conditions that are put forward by Trading Standards, if the committee is indeed minded to follow Trading Standards recommendation?
I don't think it's for the public health to respond. I don't know if they want to respond, but we take all the recommendations from people when we have a discussion. It's for the panel to consider either reject the recommendations or take them on board. It depends, on the discussions we will have, and sometimes we take all the recommendations, sometimes some of them, or so on and so on. So I don't think it's for the public health to respond there.
Madam, you may have misunderstood my point. The point that I was making is that public health have put forward some proposed conditions that the licence holder is willing to agree to, and I just wanted to check whether there was anything additional that public health was proposing that is not already covered by the conditions that are proposed by Trading Standards. Because obviously sometimes it can get a little bit confusing when there are 3 sets of conditions that are put forward by different parties. That was all that I wanted to cover, whether there anything additional, there was anything additional beyond what's put forward by Trading Standards that public health would propose.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, is it okay if I answer that? It's Marlene.
Yes, you can. Yes.
I would kind of revert back to what Councillor Adamu say, that it's for the panel to decide, and that we would rather go for that the licence is revoked. However, if the panel decides otherwise, then we would want those conditions in, and we will always write our rep on the basis of a public health response, and that's the response that we have written in the document. We're not writing it on behalf of Trading Standards or licensing, we write it on behalf of public health, the Director of Public Health. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else, any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. In that case, I go to the licensing officer.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep my submission brief, as a lot of the things have already been said by Trading Standards and Public Health. But basically, as my rep states, we are mindful that the management isn't strong enough to comply with the licensing conditions as are, the mandatory and what's on the license. We are very concerned that the premises has failed the Challenge 25 test purchase. Underage sale has taken place. The premises has also taken steps to conceal obtained smuggled goods for sales to the public. This is a concern for us, as it is a significant breach of licensing requirements in the license conditions been adhered to, as illicit alcohol has been sold. The license holder is fully aware of his legal obligations in being granted a premises license to sell alcohol and subsequently signing up to the council's responsible retailer campaign by the responsible authorities and attention to the current conditions in place on the license and the law itself. The licensing authority is recommending a revocation. If the licensing, sorry?
I think we lost you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The sound.
Oh, have you?
We lost
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go on.
sorry, I don't know how much of that you got, but we and if the committee is minded not to revoke the license, that a serious consideration is.
Nashaba, you're cutting in and out.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on.
Could you repeat the last phrase about the recommendations or considerations? Whatever.
Yes. Sorry, my screen's gone. Sorry.
Oh, don't worry. It's about the sound, really.
Okay. All right. The licensing authority recommends that the license is revoked, and if the licensing subcommittee are not serious lengthy suspension of the license to put so that the licensee can put things in order.
I'm afraid we keep losing you.
I'm so sorry, Chair. I'm not sure what's going on. It does show I have full signal.
Nas, can you help with this one?
I'm not sure, unless Nashaba, do you
Sorry,
want to?
Chair. Sorry, Naz. So I think Nashaba is saying that you want the licensing committee to consider the revocation. If the committee are not minded to do a revocation, then a suspension of the license, and to also consider the conditions that have been placed in the local authority representation and also the trading standards representation in that case.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry you're having trouble. Okay, I hope you will be able to hear if there are any questions. Are there any questions from members?
Yes, I have a, sorry.
Okay, members first. I don't think there are any questions. Okay, do you have a question?
Yes, I hope that you can hear me properly.
Yes.
Sorry, in the licensing officer. Just the committee is obviously obliged to take into account the complaint history at the premises, if there is one. There's no note of any issues at the premises since 2011 when Mr. Yoga took over as the DPS. Could you confirm that there have been no previous complaints concerning these premises?
Check.
Yes.
Check. Can we just give her a moment, and hopefully she'll respond back to me in the chat, and I'll let you have an answer to that.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Okay. We give you a minute, and then we'll carry on.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so there is no complaint history on M3, just some not quite related issues around fly tipping and how they were not disposing of rubbish caused on the premises in a proper fashion.
In that case, can I ask whatever they have been visited in the past? Because sometimes if they haven't been visited, we wouldn't know. I'm not saying that they did anything wrong, but I'm just trying to clarify whatever they have been visited in the past and there was no problem, or whatever they haven't been visited.
They have been visited in the past, Chair. As I said, they've been visited by the ASB team and waste team, certainly, yeah. And they certainly had visits when the COVID marshals, just general information giving and so forth was being done, a few months back as well.
Okay, thank you.
There was an underage test purchase also in 2014, which they were compliant with back then.
Okay. Do you have any more questions?
That was what I was going to ask about next. If I could next just move on to some of the conditions that are proposed. I'm not going to go through all of them, and I stress, obviously, to avoid any misunderstanding. I appreciate that what conditions are imposed is a matter for the committee, but I'm just trying to understand why certain conditions are put forward. In particular, you proposed that the licensing hours are reduced. Now, that would normally be a change that would be brought in if there was a concern about nuisance or antisocial behaviour or something of that nature. So I wonder if you could explain why you propose that there should be a reduction in the hours of the premises.
I don't know if you could hear that.
Yep, Chair, the response is that was due to, obviously it's up to yourselves as the committee members to determine what conditions you feel best in order to ensure that the licence holder is able to comply with the licensing objectives. Obviously, if they have less time, less ability to sell alcohol, then that is a plus in that regard. If there are concerns as to their management and how they're selling and conducting the premises, but yeah, it's one of the various options that's been put forward, Chair, for the panel to consider.
Thank you.
All right, I won't explore that further if it's just simply one of various options. Thank you.
Okay, I don't think there are any more questions. Nobody's indicated. So in that case, I will come to you, Mr. Rogers, to introduce your report or your obligation.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I assume that the committee have had an opportunity to read Mr. Yerger's witness statement, which is in the separate bundle of additional papers. He attaches a number of documents to that witness statement. I'm not going to repeat everything that he has to say. However, I'm going to highlight a few points. He emphasises in the first few paragraphs that he's been the designated premises supervisor for some 10 years, and it's a small business that he runs with 3 full-time members of staff, including himself, and a part-time member of staff, one of whom is his father. He explains that he has not had any previous issues in the past, and he is very shocked and saddened to find himself in this situation where a review of the premises licence is being sought. With regard to the visit on the 30th of April, obviously the panel can read the explanation that's given at paragraphs 7 to 9. I would stress that the tobacco that was on the premises, Mr. Yerger contends, belonged to his father, not to him, and that he accepts in full at paragraph 9 that he made a serious mistake in allowing his father to store the tobacco at the premises. He says this should not have happened. I've learned my lesson, and this will certainly not be repeated in future. And he then goes on at paragraph 10 to highlight that he buys his tobacco from reputable suppliers, and in that context, one might want to consider a condition that only the designated premises supervisor buys any tobacco. He exhibits evidence of his purchases from reputable suppliers. That's at exhibits 36 to 48. And he also produces evidence that he buys his alcohol from reputable suppliers as well. I'm not entirely clear to what extent the alcohol, the Polish beer that was on the premises was in any way unlawful, but nevertheless he has produced evidence as referred to in paragraph 12 at exhibits 49 to 82 to demonstrate that he buys his alcohol from reputable suppliers. As far as the underage test purchase is concerned, Mr. Yerga explains that his father was behind the counter on that day and made an error between two drinks that his father believed had similar packaging, and we can see the comparison of the two at exhibit 28. Mr. Yerga did not wish to make any excuses for his father's behaviour. It obviously didn't comply with any challenge policy, although the challenge 25 policy isn't actually a current condition. But he puts forward mitigation at paragraph 14 that his father had suffered a recent family bereavement and was not in the correct frame of mind, and simply made a very unfortunate mistake on that day. Mr. Yerga sets out at paragraph 15 that he will make sure that he monitors all of his staff in future, and he will also take steps to ensure that they are properly trained. With regard to the CCTV issue at paragraph 16, Mr. Yerga explains that CCTV has been in place at the premises for a number of years. The requirements that are set out in the existing conditions are quite limited and not as detailed as you often find in a premises licence. He explains that it was not in proper working order. It wasn't properly recording images on the 30th of April. He's now put that right. He's upgraded the system, and he exhibits at exhibit 25 evidence that he has done so. Mr. Yerga, since he was notified of these issues, has taken a number of positive steps to show that he is practically seeking to promote the licensing objectives. And he explains what they are, and to a significant extent, they mirror a number of the conditions that are put forward by the licensing officer and by training standards. He has put in place a Challenge 25 policy. This is at paragraph 19. He refers to the Challenge 25 poster, which is exhibit 26. He's provided guidance for his staff, and there's a useful flow chart that he refers to there at paragraph 35. At paragraph 20, he makes reference to the refusals book, which we touched on earlier, and he has shown at exhibit 17 to 23 that there are a number of occasions when he's made a correct note of the sale of alcohol or sale of tobacco being refused, to make sure that he is complying with the law in that regard. Obviously, there's no need at present for him to have a refusals book, but that is one of the proposed conditions. It is in fact already in place. At paragraph 21, and slightly before that at paragraph 17, he explains how he has ensured that both he and himself have received refresher training, and he produces the records for his training at exhibits 7 to 14, and then at exhibits 1 to 5, evidence of that recent training that has taken place. And that demonstrates that he is taking a proactive attitude in making sure that all of his staff are promoting the licensing objectives at all times. At paragraph 23, Mr. Yerga refers to an ultraviolet light that he has in the premises, which is now in regular use. We can see it at exhibit 27, and that's used to check the authenticity of all stock and to make sure that it has the correct UK duty paid stamp. And he has been using that to make sure that there is nothing that arrives on the premises that is non-duty paid. There's no reason to think that there would be, given that he's using reputable suppliers, but just in case. Now, in terms of the what's put forward by trading standards, it is notable that the original application by trading standards proposed as a temporary suspension of the license, not revocation, and asked that a number of conditions are put in place. Mr. Yerga has agreed to all of those conditions and has set out in his witness statement that those conditions are to a large extent already in place. It is not going to take Mr. Yerga months in order to do this. If there is anything that is remains to be resolved, it would take a matter of hours or days for him to put those steps in place. And so the submission that Mr. Yerga would put forward to the committee is that he is taking the licensing objectives very seriously, and he has already put in place a number of conditions without waiting for them to be formally imposed, and therefore a suspension of the license is not necessary in these circumstances. Of course, taking account of the fact that there have been no issues at the premises in the past. Mr. Yerga was surprised to receive the representations from public health and licensing concerning proposing that his license be revoked, given the period of time in which he has operated a successful and lawful business. The conditions that have been proposed by public health are accepted in full, and they have been already incorporated largely by those proposed by training standards. As far as the conditions that are put forward by the licensing team are concerned, it is a little bit difficult to understand the logic of changing the hours at the premises because there is no suggestion that there have been any issues with nuisance, antisocial behaviour, or anything of that nature. The hours that are allowed under the present licence are 5:30 a.m. until 1 o'clock a.m. They've been operated for some time, since 2011, without there being any of those issues arising. In reality, at present, Mr. Yerga opens the premises from 6:30 a.m. Until 11 o'clock p.m. Since the start of the pandemic, he has closed the premises earlier in any event. But I just put that forward by way of information. There are a number of other conditions that licensing team put forward. The vast majority of those seem to be very sensible I wasn't entirely clear as to the proposed condition regarding the strength of the beer that was offered for sale at the premises. Again, that is something that one often sees where there is antisocial behaviour or crime associated with the premises, with people drinking outside, etc., that type of thing. And that is not something that we've seen here. And so it's a little bit difficult to understand the logic of that proposal in terms of promoting the licensing objectives. But apart from that, Mr. Yerga, as I've indicated, has already put a number of sensible arrangements in place. And if one looks at his existing license, which is at page 61 of the first bundle, the bundle that contains the application, we can see that the conditions that are in place at the moment are actually quite limited. And so adding all of these extra conditions will ensure that Mr. Yerga is able to take those positive steps to promote the licensing objectives and will reduce the risk of anything like this happening in future, rather than taking the somewhat draconian step of revoking the license on the first occasion, which I would submit is not appropriate in these particular circumstances. Mr. Yerga is very keen to stress that the committee can have confidence in him as the designated premises supervisor, because he has taken account of what has happened here, and he's already put in place the sensible measures that I have discussed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before the sound is gone funny again. I was going to say, before I take questions, will Mr. Yoga, will he like to say anything before I take questions?
Yes, thanks for giving me a word. Up to now, for 10 years, we never do nothing with the licensing objectives. But from now, I will put forward everything what I can done for you and do all the conditions in proper things, as Michael Rogers said, and nothing to say.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask, perhaps I'd like to clarify the question for the camera. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did I read somewhere it says that the camera wasn't programmed to take images? If that's correct, could you explain what the camera was able to do? And were there any previous recordings? Thank you.
I can say it wasn't set to record because the previous day we faced electrical problem and the camera was gone, and I was trying to do something with the camera, and when I was playing I just put one tick and it wasn't set to record. Before that I was always giving evidence to police or whoever else, but that was the issue on that day, I think. Yeah, we didn't notice that because the camera, when you look inside the shop, it seems working, but it never comes to my mind that to checking I should take some image for previous. That was the case, man.
So were they previous recording just to prove that the camera was working at some point?
No, the thing, I just reset the camera as well. Everything was gone.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But after that, when I tried to do something, I just tick one thing and it wasn't set for the record. That was the issue. But before that, maybe in the system you can see whenever the police come, I always provide everything, everything whoever they want, yeah. But at the moment it's working properly, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do members have any questions? Councillor Harrison.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just want to talk about these beers and the representation made against them. Obviously, you've included a large amount of invoices going back, I think, to certainly way before the trading standards visit. But the only ones that reference the Polish beers seem to be the ones on the 1st of May. And obviously that corroborates the story put forward, which is that the invoices were for beers that were delivered on the 30th of April. Now, from looking at those invoices, they do appear to be invoices from cash and carry with no delivery charge applied to them. And they also do seem to be paid for via POS terminal with cashiers, and they mention trolleys on them and that sort of thing. It very much indicates from the invoices that someone was purchasing the goods at a cash and carry and taking them away. I would say it's very, very unusual for an invoice to be dated after the delivery from a wholesaler's. I've never experienced that before. And the three that the Polish beers were bought from are all geographically located very close to one another. And obviously you could make trips to all three within a morning, let's say, for argument's sake. So do you have any further evidence of the purchase of the Polish beers from before the date of the trading standards inspection? For example, as I suggested earlier, a delivery note, bank statement, receipts from the order, anything at all, because like I say, it would be very unusual for a wholesaler to deliver without any record and then issue an invoice marking it as cash and carry with a point of sale the day after the delivery has occurred from three separate wholesalers, not just one wholesaler, but three separate wholesalers for that to have occurred.
Yes, I can say those cash and carry, I know them for long years. Sometimes we order and we take the products and we pay later on. Even it happens for the other cash and carries as well, Best Way, Demetce. We can, because the people who work there, they know us for long years, and we can sometimes take and we can go and pay and they can authorize the invoice the day later. But I wasn't expecting that it's gonna be the issue for that case. Yeah. Even they sometimes credit note to us because they know our business. We have been working with them with no problem. Yeah, that's the case.
Sorry, I'm a bit surprised. I have to say, I'm a bit surprised of your answer. I will assume in cash and carry there are staff working there. Surely the staff cannot allow you to take a large amount of beers out without paying. I'm sorry if I seem a bit, but I find it difficult to understand that, and perhaps you can explain longer. I mean, I don't know, maybe you can explain again. It's very difficult for me to understand that.
I would also just, it appears to show £7,000 worth of goods that you're saying were given on the deal of knowing someone there across three separate venues.
No, the thing, it was from different cash and carries, and they do know us for long years. That's the case, you know. Even I can go at the moment and take something and put a credit note, and I can go and pay them later on. That's the thing. Even it's same with the other cash and carries as well. The other shopkeepers are doing as well. Sometimes they put limit, and it depends with the manager who is working there. I can do with the other things. Even sometimes you overbuy. They put something on promotion and you overbuy, and they know us. They know because we have all the details with them, and they want to sell their products. That's why they sometimes let. Yeah.
But surely there's staff there. The owner is not there all the time. He's not serving you. It's the staff there. Well, anyway, okay, we'll leave it at that. Councillor Blake, I'll come back again. I'll come back, Councillor Harrison.
Can I just ask, just go back to the camera? I think I understood, but did you say that the camera had been working up and had broken down on the day of the visit? I mean, how long was the camera not working to your knowledge?
I can't say exact date, but previous day we faced electric problem, and the electric main shutter gone down, and the camera didn't start working. Some of the image didn't start working, and I just put reset, and after that open it, and it starts working. After that, I need to do some file change on it. For example, programming, put the right things, because the timing was different on the time, actual time was different. Within this time, I think I had a mistake, and I did put not to set record instead of set the records. And I didn't notice after that, because after that nothing happened, and I never checked the camera if it's set to that. Even if somebody asks, I can understand right now if it's setting, if it's recording or right now. But what I believe at the moment is perfectly working. Yeah, that's the case. Yeah. But that day, the previous day, it didn't start working because of the electric problem that time.
Okay. You have explained that your father, you know, you had sadly had a bereavement in the family, and your dad was upset, and you have acknowledged that it was a mistake. I mean, I understand that, but is your father aware, you know, that there are a lot of schools and college, you know, there's the college and the school in the area? I mean, I thought, and you will, Mr. Yerger, correct me if I'm wrong, but a Red Bull can is a red and silver can, and a can of gin is a blue and silver can, as far as I know. And so I find it difficult to understand how, and I understand, you know, he was upset and distraught. I do understand that. But, you know, there are schools in the area. Is your father aware of the licensing conditions, you know, the concerns that we have around underage drinking in this borough? You know, if you could clarify that, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
For the Red Bull thing, I can clarify. There is not only one type of Red Bull. They always put different editions, and this one cactus flavor. And if you check from internet, they look more or like same, because Red Bull, there is no only one Red Bull flavor, and he was thinking that this underage girl was trying to buy energy drink, not the other one. And for the other thing, we always aware that, and which is my father even received letters from the council that because we never sell alcohol or tobacco to underage people up to now. So I think it was just mistake for him, and yeah, I do accept that. It's just one of the things that is against licensing objectives. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
For the record, I would like to say another thing. Father, from time to time I used to tell everything for the licensing, but my father put to write something on the logbook because he already forget that situation. He was only focusing on not to sell under 18 and not to prevent crime and disorder in the area. If he see anything happening, he just called, or he just giving some of us to call the police or letting them know. But he also forget that to put the notes to the logbook at that time. But after that, I just give him refreshment training course. Yeah, he just took refreshment training course as well. Yeah.
But Mr. York, you also didn't have, I understand you're supposed to keep a register where when you refuse, you know, a customer. And I understand there wasn't such a register in your business. You didn't keep a register of refusal.
Sorry,
The register for refusal. You know, if you refuse somebody for whatever, you're supposed to keep a record. And I understand there was no such records.
Yes, I do have, yeah. Normally I do put, but at that time I'm talking about, you know, my father forgot to register the things for that incident, I mean.
But if maybe I'm wrong, but I thought it said there wasn't, that you're busy, you are not keeping a record of refusal. Maybe I'm wrong, I have to look at the paper again. So it wasn't one-off. It was no register or at the premises or for refusal.
Yeah, I have registered.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Harrison, you have more questions?
Yes, thank you. In the original pack, page 51, there's a response from Burhan Yeher. Is that your father, Burhan?
My father.
Yeah. And in it, in response to question 11, in regards to the tobacco, it says that you stated the tobacco was for the personal use of your father. If that's the case, why was it in the shop? And there are many different brands and types. And the response is, I'm a heavy smoker. When Mr. and then I can't quite work out the name, but came in with the tobacco with very good price. Obviously, your father is a shopkeeper essentially and knows that tobacco should be sold in the UK duty paid, and he is working under you as the DPS. So the fact that he is purchasing tobacco himself on your premises from effectively a man that's popped in with some cigarettes does raise alarm bells about you know, him working in the shop and what other activities he may be doing that you're not present at. And then obviously that brings into kind of you know, question for the panel of how much supervising is happening from yourself as the DPS, given obviously the test purchase also occurred when you weren't in the premises. So how often are you in the premises? How often is the premises being run without your oversight? And would you be aware if other activities were happening? I think you have said that you were aware that the cigarettes were there and you made a mistake. You know, they were for personal use. You knew they were there, and that shouldn't have happened. But would you be in the shop enough to be fully aware of what is going on and give us the confidence of you as a DPS? You're on mute, Mr. Yerga.
Yeah, I am the one who stays at the shop, but I am the guy who do always cash and carries in the morning time, and sometimes I'm married man, so my father has to cover night time for myself. That's why, but most of the time I do involve buying the goods and products. And the one who stay in the shop long hours, because of their age, they can't work as well, too long hours.
So can you give us an indication of how much you're in the shop during the day versus whoever else is looking after it, and when you come in and someone else has been doing things, how much are you supervising, so to speak? How many questions do you ask about what's happening? Are you reviewing the CCTV, reviewing the logbook? You know, give us kind of a representation of you as a DPS in terms of your character.
Yes, most of the time I do, and in the shop, most of the time I do stay around 8 or 9 hours, plus the cash and carry I bring, yeah. And most of the time I do ask them if there any problem with the nature, anything happen in the shop, they always let me know about the things, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions from members, then I will ask, I'll start with the licensing officer or the trading standard, whoever wants to ask the questions first. Could you indicate, or perhaps just start with the trading standards. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, just one question, Chair, to Mr. Yerga. If the tobacco was for personal use and just being stored at the premises, why was it in a box with loose packets behind the counter with cash in it?
My father told me that he was giving him some of his friends as well. That's why he put, and he told me that they're gonna come and pick it up. That's why. And they are heavy smokers. Whatever they find, they smoke. That's another thing. His friends as well.
So he was supplying the tobacco from the shop to friends. Is that what you're saying?
Not selling, not for selling purpose. Yeah. Some of them are for his friends as well. Yeah. Not for sale.
I've no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the licensing officer have any questions?
No, Chair, I don't have any questions at this time.
Public health, Maria?
Yes, Councillor Gina, I do have a question. I just want to know, this is similar to Councillor Barbara's question, but I just wanted to kind of understand it like fully from the applicant. How did Burchin's father verify the product to know its price before it was sold to a 16-year-old? So how did he determine it when he looked at the product purchased by the 16-year-old? How did he determine the price of it? What made him think, yeah, this is a Red Bull, this is something else, or just want to know from the applicant?
The thing, he didn't even know that he had sold that alcoholic drink. And when he sold this item to the girl, the officers came and he just noticed that he just sold the Gordon as a mistake.
So he knew it was an inspection, is that what you're saying?
No, because he sold after that, the officers came to the shop and told them that, you know, you sold Gordon to underage lady, and he just noticed at that time that it was a Gordon, not a Red Bull. Citrus flavor, the green one.
Okay. And just another question is, what training is given to the staff, your staff, and what was specifically given to Burchin's father?
Yeah, refreshing personal training. We do refreshing.
What does that entail?
Sorry?
What does that like mean? Like what is in the training?
The main idea to obey main 4 licensing objectives and obey the licensing rules in this country.
Does that include the refusal log as well?
Yes, I did.
And to check the ID and
check the ID as well. Yeah, because the refresher training includes all of them. Yeah. The alcohol volumes as well, I did tell them. Yeah. For the public nuisance, I did give something, and we did some risk assessment as well for the litter. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Burchin.
Okay, thank you. I think I see a hand, Felicia, but I can't see who it is.
Good evening, Chair. Sorry, I'm the Commercial Environmental Health and Trading Standards Manager. I haven't got a question. I just have a point of clarification to make. You did ask earlier about complaints about the premises, and we have had complaints about the sale of illicit tobacco on the premises previous in 2018. We've also had a complaint where an officer has been in and noticed the sale of single cigarettes on the premises. And during our compliance checks for the responsible retailer scheme, we have found that in 2020 they had no refusal book at the time of our inspection. So I just wanted you to be aware of those instances as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Mrs. Barrett, Delia, you want to come in here?
Thank you, Chair. Just to go back to one of the matters Mr. Rogers raised, he asked about ASB and so forth in the area. So there is ASB, existing ASB in that location. There is a business that's just across the road from the premises that has men who will congregate outside on the street. It is a seasonal thing that happens, and certainly complaints, although alleging that the alcohol that they are consuming out there at night time is from Mr. Yerga's shop. But obviously the complaints has been around the noise that is generated by the groups of men that are hanging out and consuming alcohol across the road outside of another premises, in fact, Chair.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more questions, I think I will ask people to sum up. Can I ask Freddie Sanders first to sum up, please?
There's a hand up, Chair.
Is there? I can't see it. Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Harrison, I didn't see you.
That's quite right, Chair. It was just coming back on what Felicia had mentioned, the fact that there was no logbook on a visit in 2020, I think she said.
Yeah.
But as part of the representation, an appendix has been included showing a logbook with written records going back to 2017, I think it was. I'm struggling to find it now because that document is incredibly long, but I think it was somewhere in the document. So obviously the two don't reconcile there, so I'm wondering if there is an answer.
Yes, I think you have a good point, actually. Can anybody respond? Can Mr. Rogers or Mr. Yuko respond to that?
Well, it's rather unfortunate that this issue has been raised now. If it had been raised previously, obviously Mr. Yerga might have been able to address it, but I'm not quite sure what visits took place in 2020, or if Mr. Yerga is able to speak to that or not. I mean, we can ask him if he's aware of a visit in 2020, I suppose.
Well, you're listening to this, Mr. Yerga. Can you respond?
Yeah, I didn't remember that time. We always keep it, but maybe at a different place of the business. We always keep next to the counter, but maybe, I don't know. And as I mentioned earlier, my father maybe forgot what that means, language barrier as well.
But it's not, you keep saying your father, but it's your responsibility, Mr.
But what I mean, when they come, I wasn't sure about if I was in the shop or not, because 2020, I don't remember nothing like this. And if they asked for it, maybe my father didn't understand. That's what I would like to say.
I think the problem, Chair, is that we don't have a specific date for a specific visit, and therefore it's very difficult for Mr. Yerga to respond. If it was suggested there was a visit on the 10th of July, and then he could look back and ascertain who was there and what might have happened. But at the minute, it just seems to be very vague.
Okay, can I ask then the manager, Felicia, can you clarify more about these dates? Can you advise us? You mentioned 2018, 2020.
Sorry, I can give you the date was the 29th of January 2020, and we sent a letter to the DPS reminding him that he needs to have a refusal book.
Okay.
On the 2018 illicit tobacco, we had a complaint about from a member of the public that illicit tobacco was being sold to the premises.
Okay.
I can give you the date for that. Sorry, I'm just going back into it. So I did open a minute ago.
Well, I think Councillor Harrison have a question. Why are you looking for that? Councillor Harrison?
Thank you. Yeah, I found the logbook in the pack, so I'm just looking at it, and it looks like the standard logbook. I'm just wondering whether perhaps Ms. Barrett can confirm whether this is supplied by Haringey Council or someone else, and if so, whether there is a record of it being supplied and a date, or whether it is something that is, I guess, printed off or something.
Sorry, can I come back on that? Yes, it is part of our responsible retailers pack that we send out to businesses. So we actually give them refusal books so so that they can fill that in. Now, looking back at the responsible retailers' visits, I mean, they have had a series of visits over the years. I couldn't exactly tell you when they got that book, because we tend to give them out. If we don't see one on the premises, we will give them one at that time. So they may well have given it to them in 2020. They may have had it before that.
Okay. Was there a visit around the start of 2017 at all?
2017. So. I do apologize. My computer is very, very slow. So
while you're looking at that, I asked the dealer was to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify, Chair, just for ease of reference and to put Mr. Rogers' mind at rest also, that in terms of the conditions of the licence, the need for the refusal book is not stated in the current premises licence at all. So Mr. Jürgen he's not breached Mr. Jürgen's not breached a condition of the licence as such. However, because Haringey has, aware of the issues arising in Haringey, the fact that there are we do have premises that are willing to take the risk to stock illicit goods and so forth. We did bring in, or the Commercial Environment Health team and Public Health did bring in the responsible retailers scheme, and which has taken officer time really to go out and do one-to-one visits with businesses and just to educate them about the problems that are arising in Haringey. So it means a great deal when someone has signed up to that responsible retailer scheme and then not, decided that they're not sticking to, all the conditions and what's been agreed to, because they have signed up and said that they would abide by this, and that's again outside of the fact that they have already gone through training to become a DP, to become a personal license holder, and then being given the opportunity to have that responsibility to be retailing alcohol in a safe and responsible manner, really. So it is a big ask.
Okay.
Just to answer your question, they actually signed up to the scheme in 2015. That was in 23rd of February 2015. They did receive a further visit on the 16th of August 2017, and at that time they were found to be compliant, so there was no concerns at that time.
Okay.
They may well have had the book from 2015.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right. If there are no more clarifications or questions, I will ask people to sum up this time, and I start with trading standards.
Hello, Chair. Just briefly, obviously this matter does relate to quite a substantial duty evasion of tobacco in the amount of £640.55. We do remain concerned that the explanation given about the beer was not adequate. And obviously there is the issue with the CCTV not working, which was a licensed condition. So, and obviously the underage sale, which the can of gin was sold to a 16-year-old. Obviously, we've asked for a suspension of the license and a number of conditions, and obviously that sums up our case.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And then Public Health, do you like to add anything, sum up?
Yeah, yes, Chair. Just want to say that the business was well aware of the consequences and penalty of an underage sales and the responsibility to promote licensing objectives. And despite that, an underage test purchase was made, and the refusal log submitted by the applicant did not demonstrate the same due diligence in their underage test purchase. It is the designated premises licence holder responsibility to take all the responsible steps to prevent committing an offence, and that includes staff is checking ID. And this premises is located in a vulnerable area with high number of education establishments, and young people and children living and studying there. So it is the designated premise license holders' responsibility to make sure they're extra cautious. And is there anything else that Miley, you wanted to add?
No, I think you've said it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Licensing. Shah, are you still with us?
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me. Mr. Yerger has taken steps after the fact, after being found with illicit goods on site. We recognise that. It is important that the authority can have a degree of trust in the licence holder and the DPS. Good with the community. Haringey does take these matters seriously and will always wish to support responsible operators. We feel a revocation of the licence, or if the committee is minded, to suspend the licence.
Sorry, Chair, just wanted to add that we also support licensing and trading standards to suspend the licence.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Rogers, would you like to sum up?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I already said most of what I intended to say, so I won't repeat myself. And there were just a couple of points. It might be helpful to have a look at the existing conditions, which are at page 61 of the first bundle, because one will see that they are extremely limited. That there are lots of references being made to steps that Mr. Yerger took or didn't take, but the current conditions, for example, don't make any reference to a refusals log. The Challenge 25 policy is not there either, and that's relatively unusual nowadays. But Mr. Yerger's obviously gone further than what's in those extremely limited conditions, and is very keen to make sure that he takes further steps to show that he is promoting those licensing objectives. There was also, just very briefly, some questions asked about the confusion between the bottle of Red Bull and the bottle of gin. There's actually a photograph that I made reference to, which is at Exhibit 28 of Mr. Yerger's witness statement, which shows that both of those bottles are green. And I wouldn't want there to be confusion. I understand that there are a number of different types of Red Bull, for example, and that could have given rise to some confusion. Obviously, it's not an excuse. It's at Exhibit 28, page 37 of that bundle, so that the Gordon's gin is green at the bottom with a kind of white strip at the top, and the Red Bull is green with a kind of silver strip at the top. And so there are similarities between the two. Chair, I don't know if there's anything further that you'd like to hear from me on, but I indicated that I would be very brief.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. I think, Mrs. Barrett, you want to come in?
Sorry, Chair, I just wanted to have a point of clarity there with Mr. Rogers there. I know he's saying, pointing the committee to the conditions on page, from page 61 on, and obviously the current conditions, regardless of it not having a challenge 25 on it, it's law in any event that you cannot sell alcohol to anyone under 18. And even on the current licence, conditions are saying a strict policy of ID will be enforced for the sale of alcohol to over 18s only. So either way, there is something in there that, that would have made or caused the seller, the DPS, the persons on site to know that they should be taking some kind of precaution.
Well, indeed, I hope that I was not misunderstood. I wasn't trying to suggest that there wasn't a requirement not to sell alcohol to under 18s. That would obviously be absurd. What I was suggesting is that the more stringent requirements of the Channel 25 policy are not in there. And Mr. Yerga agrees that it would be sensible to bring those in, and indeed has already done so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much for your time this evening. And as I said at the beginning, I will ask you to leave us. The panel, will have a discussion and make our decision, and you will have our decision within 5 working days. Thank you very much all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Thank you.